Compassion's that sort of motivation, like this drive to take care of each other, to look out for each other. Niceness maybe not always from a place of compassion. Has anyone ever been nice to someone just to get what they want? Right? Yeah, you can be nice to someone just to get what you want. What do you think? Having empathy, right? Again, there's this sort of an orientation that we have with kindness. So kindness, when we do something to help somebody and it's from a place of kindness, there's something in us that is saying, there's another human that needs help, and I'm going to help them because that's the right thing to do, or I want to reduce their suffering. I have empathy for them. I'm imagining what they might be going through. What other things? What do you think? Okay. Yeah, kind-hearted. Yeah, so kind-hearted meaning you believe that it's the right thing for us to do for each other. That humans should be kind to each other just for the sake, for the fact that we are humans, right? Other things, other ideas. I'm not going to put you on the spot. What do you think? Okay, so niceness could be temporary. So I think that's really interesting. Kindness is part of your personality. Does that mean that if somebody doesn't have it in their personality, that they're just doomed to be mean? No, right? So they're definitely, as with most things, there's some part of it that seems to be trait-like, right? That we're sort of born with it, but then there's a lot that we can exercise and create and grow, for sure. What do you think about what is more honest? Kind, right? Because you can also imagine being nice to somebody, again, because you want something from them. That's not super honest, right? But you could also just be nice to somebody and then turn around the corner and go, oh my God, that person, blah, 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 right? Niceness is sometimes about pleasing. You just want to please somebody, so you say, yes, I'll help you with that or whatever. Kindness is willing to have a hard conversation. Kindness is willing to deal with a problem. Niceness is going to sweep problems under the rug. Does that make sense? You know what it feels like to be nice, right? Just to want to please people. You don't want anyone to be uncomfortable. And with kindness, it's not that we want people to be uncomfortable, but we're willing to sort of sit in that place and be uncomfortable if we need to in order to make those connections that we need to make. So there's not a good short answer for this difference between kind and nice. But what I encourage you to do is think about it in your life. Think about, am I being nice right now, or am I actually being kind? And what you'll find is that kindness also takes care of you. So niceness, might be sort of martyring, right? Like I'm giving, even though it's hurting me. Kindness doesn't do that. Kindness is helping each other because it's good for both parties. So let's think about that. So let's go further and think about a kindness that you've experienced. Is it hard to think of one? It's not hard to say, hey, how you doing? I'm going to sort of repeat back what people are saying because of this thing. So that's what I'm doing. So yeah, so people say hello to each other, hold doors open for each other. I hope that we all have that around us. I'm not sure that we all always do, right? That's the point of us being able to talk about this and create it. So think about a kindness, right? Not going to make anybody talk. We don't have time to go around and share, although it's a really great thing to do when you do have time, because talking about kindness is a really good way to keep kindness going. Now, notice here that I said a kindness experienced, because how can you experience a kindness? In what role can you be in? You could be receiving the kindness. You could be giving the kindness. Any other role? Sorry? Observing it. This is a big one, right? We can observe kindness happening between other people, and it still can affect us in a really positive way. Have you ever heard of the emotion elevation? This is a very under-known emotion, and it's a really good one. I feel like we should all know what elevation is. You know that feeling when you see goodness happening between people and it feels good? It's not happiness, because often it's during a hard time, right? Like there's been a natural disaster or something, and people are in there and they're helping each other, and you feel that feeling of, like, man, people are stepping up for each other. It's not happiness, again, because people are suffering. That's called elevation. That's a really, really cool emotion that we can get from observing kindness happening with other people. All right, so now that you have hopefully have a kindness that you're thinking about, can be a little kindness or a big kindness. How did you know that it was kind? Because you've done it before yourself? What do you think? Because you were with people who you loved, so you knew it was kind, so you knew what their motivation was, you knew it was coming from a great place. Talk really loudly. It didn't seem like they were like doing something for their own benefit. What do you think? The community, you know that these people around you are kind people, you're good people. What is the very first way you know that something is kind? Don't overthink this. What do you think? There's something you're a little surprised maybe by it? It's a little out of the ordinary? Yeah, what do you think? How it makes you feel, right? That tends to be the first thing, right? And what are some of the feelings, the emotion we get from receiving a kindness? Happiness, gratitude, elevation, I already talked about. Excitement, surprise, you said surprise, right? So the emotions tend to be the first sort of signal, and that something feels good. And that is a real thing, right? How we feel is a real thing. It's sort of how we our radar in the world, right? I'm going to do this often. So this idea that we as humans walk around like sensing, are we okay? Am I safe here? And when somebody does something kind for us and we feel it, it's like evidence that we're okay, right? We're welcome, we're included. Okay, so you all came up with some great ones around how you knew it was kind. What was the outcome? You already feeling something is an outcome, right? An outcome is just a result. But what other potential outcomes from kindness? Connection, right? So your relationship might be better. Your connection might be better. Did you have another one? Spreading it. When we do kindness, especially if other people see it, they might be motivated to do kindness themselves. So that idea of ripple effect is true and real. Outcomes. Yes. Less suffering. Seems like a really important one that we should maybe sit with for a second, right? Less suffering. So when we look out for each other, when we respond to each other's needs, we reduce suffering. We reduce suffering. Kindness grows. The people come, and the kindness multiplies. So the food is all hand cooked. Again, I'm repeating for this. The food is all hand cooked. People bring it with love and share it. Serve it. I love it. Take home. Amazing. So people are getting fed the entire month because the way that the people have set it up so that the food is being shared all around. These are some amazing outcomes. And we need to sort of sit with them for a second, because it's really easy to think about kindness. People are like, yeah, kindness, great, kindness, right? But we need to get serious about what it really does for us, right? Now, I'm a scientist, so when we think about outcomes, we think about what is getting us to that outcome, right? Can you picture the thing with the arrows, right? So these are the outcomes over here. We just listed a whole lot. Relationships, connection, less suffering, good feelings, happiness, all, these really, really important outcomes. So these are happening because of kind behavior. Okay, so here, this is the thing we want more of. We want more of this, so we get more of these. Does that make sense? Any of you scientists, right? That's how that works. Okay, so I wanted to share just a quick little story with you. I think about kindness all the time. because I study it, right? And I've been doing this for a long time. And when I go throughout my life, I think about, what does kindness look like in these different situations? What does kindness look like? What does it look like? What does it look like? And I was walking down the street in Tucson, pretty busy street on the sidewalk, broad daylight. And there was probably a 15-year-old kid coming towards me on the sidewalk. And I thought he and I probably could have easily just walked by each other without acknowledging each other at all. But I'm practicing kindness, right? So I'm going to connect with him. So I think, what does kindness look like here? Would it be kind for me to give this kid a hug? No, it would not. And possibly it would be illegal, right? Seriously, kindness is not just about connecting willy-nilly, right? We have to think about what we're doing. Would it be kind for me to like stop and ask him about his day, what he's up to? Probably not, right? Again, too intrusive. Do you want me stopping you and asking you all about? No, you probably do not, right? But so I just decided to say good morning or hello or something, right? I thought that's a way to connect without intruding, right? I should warn you, I used to be a sign language interpreter, so there's going to be a lot of gesturing from me. So I did. I said good morning. And he, I think, was surprised, looked up, and he said good morning. And we walked off. And I just felt the feels, right? I was connected with him, felt good. He comes running back to me, keep in mind, probably 15, 16-year-old boy, and hands me one of those handmade friendship bracelets. Oh, come on. I need a better response than that, right? Thank you, right? This is a teenage boy on the streets of Tucson, middle-aged woman, complete strangers, right? We had a moment. But what is important to me about this is that my saying hello to him, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, I'm just describing what happened. I was practicing. My saying hello to him was important to him. It was important to him. If I had thought about it a lot and I thought, oh, teenage boy, middle-aged woman, don't know each other, I probably would have thought he doesn't care about connecting with me. That's what I would have thought if I used my brain too much, right? But what happened was he did care. It meant something to him, and I know that because one of the outcomes was I got a cool piece of jewelry, right? So again, that we underestimate how important these small connections can be. So think about that again as we go through today. All right, so we've already talked about why kindness a bit, but I want to give you a little bit more, because if we really understand why this is so important, hopefully we will be more motivated to try to increase kind behavior. So the sort of short story is that kindness is a very strong predictor of health, physical health, and well-being outcomes. Well-being means, what does well-being mean? It's one of those words. What's well-being? Healthy, but it's physical health and well-being. So healthy how? Holistically, so more than just our physical health. So happiness lands in this spot. What do you think? Mental health, meaning in your life, right? So that well-being piece is super, super important. So why is this? Why does kindness predict these kind of outcomes? Again, remember, these are outcomes. Those are outcomes. Kindness is predicting that. Why do you think that is? What do you think? Oh, you got it. So you can be up here teaching this thing, right? How did we survive, humans? Teaming up, right? Big time. Does a human back in the day, hunting and gathering, survive all alone? No, right? We are not the strongest creature. We're not the fastest. We don't fly, right? Our babies are born completely helpless, and they remain helpless for a good long time. Yeah. When I say that to an audience of older folks, they usually say something like 30 or 40 years. It takes it for us to be fully grown, but we absolutely survived because we cooperated. We work together. We hunt for food, share food with each other. We watch each other's children. We help build huts for each other. We cooperate, and that is how we survive. And that is still how we survive. Humans still need each other, right? Our species still needs these connections. But our culture, especially in the United States, sometimes almost engineers us out of connections. What are some of the ways that we're disconnecting from each other? What do you think? Social media. That's supposed to be social, right? But why isn't it so social? Huge arguments. You're interacting with way too many people, right? I mean, we did not evolve to have 500, 1,000, 3,000 friends. We did not evolve that way, right? And it's also, online stuff is taking us away from face-to-face stuff. So how much time are you spending online? That potentially is affecting how much time you're spending actually with humans, right? Right. So yeah, so we are disconnecting because of the way we're using technology. This is true, and we're starting to understand the ramifications of it, right? Start watching what's going to happen around, the Surgeon General is already saying we need a warning label on social media. So we'll see what happens. COVID, right? COVID didn't help for connectedness. And then any sort of discrimination, othering, that separates us. And that's not good for humans. Humans work well together. All right, so the bottom line is we need each other. And this is not weakness. This is not weakness. This is where we thrive when we work together. So when we compete just to compete, it's not a winning thing, right? I mean, there is competition, and sometimes competition might be a fact of life. But really, we do our best when we are working together, and we're healthiest when we're working together. This is the sort of logo from Ben's Bells, and I just wanted to emphasize that the word kin, what does kin mean? Family, together, group, right? We call it a cognate. It's a related word to kind. So kindness does have that we're in this together thing. We're in this together, we're taking care of each other, we're looking out for each other. All right, so kindness, because we are social creatures, kindness communicates safety. Again, remember this. When you come into a place where you don't know anybody, what are you looking for? Good vibes. I like that. Good vibes, exactly. Your antenna pick up good vibes, right? How could somebody communicate to you that you are okay in a new situation? Smiling. Body language. Waving, greeting you, saying, hey, come sit here. There's an empty seat. Oh, come over here, telling you what's going on, right? That kind of thing. So when I came here, for example, I mean, I wasn't super nervous or anything, but I'm in a new place and I don't know if I'm going to be accepted or not. So I come in with my antenna and, somebody at the front desk greets me warmly and walks me back here. So I start gathering evidence that I'm okay here. So kindness communicates safety to each other. All kinds of safety, physical safety, psychological safety, emotional safety, identity safety, right? When we're really kind to each other, we start feeling safer. And this is we're getting to why our physical health is involved here. But first, a little tiny detour. This says, in case you can't see it, it's a book, and it's called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. Does anyone know why zebras don't get ulcers? You've been pondering? Well, I will tell you, when you're a zebra and you're relaxed and you're just grazing on grass on the savannah, and your body is not revved up, right? You're relaxed. But then you see a lion. Your body has a reaction. Your physiology goes like this, right? And you're running away from that lion. Now, if you're fast and you get away from the lion and you're safe again, your physiology will come down again. Okay, so with a zebra, you see these there's an obvious stressor and coming down. And then there's an obvious stressor and coming down. Is that how the human stress response works? No, it is not. Why isn't it? Because humans can think and worry and obsess and ponder and think about the future and think about the past and all of this stuff. So we can have a stressor and we can sort of stay up, right? Because we're continuing to sort of stress over it. So scientists were like, why do people have like high stress responses when there doesn't seem to be a stressor? Like we don't see any big threats around, but people are stressed. What is that about? And so we start understanding that the human stress response is really different. And now the stress theories are starting to deal with that. And this is one of them that I really like, Gutt's generalized unsafety theory of stress. Now this blew my mind. I don't know if you're not as nerdy as me, it might not blow your mind, but stay with me for a second, right? So if we used to think that stress response in a human was like this, we do stress, we come down, this actually says our baseline is not this, unstressed, our baseline is stressed. Our baseline is stressed. Like without any signals of safety, we will be stressed. We are unstressed when we're safe. Are you following me? That's a big difference in a theory, right? A different way to think about it. This means we can communicate kindness to each other, communicate safety to each other, and we can help folks feel safe, and thus their physiology relax, which is healthier. Is this making sense? All right, so social vigilance, this is gonna get old really fast, I know, but social vigilance is this, right? Am I okay? Am I okay? Am I okay? Your body is revved like this. You know, you might not feel it, but you know that feeling of your shoulders being up? That's your body is actually revved up, even if you can't feel it. That isn't good for our physical bodies, right? So we need to reduce that stress in order to be healthier. So social vigilance is a normal part of it being a human when we go into new places, but there are groups of folks who are have to be socially vigilant more often, right? I will use an example, and then you can all think of examples for yourselves, but I used to work in the deaf community. I used to be a sign language interpreter, like I told you. So I really had a front row seat as an interpreter to see hearing people and deaf people interacting. Deaf people have to be pretty socially vigilant, right? Imagine being a deaf person walking into a new spot, a new place. What would you have to consider? Are you going to be able to understand anybody, right? Is the interpreter going to show up? Is the interpreter going to be good? Are the other hearing people going to be sort of standoffish, or are they going to be warm and welcoming, right? There's this more vigilance because of our discrimination, really, against deaf people. It's not an intentional discrimination, but our hearing society doesn't accommodate deaf people that well all the time. So that's what I mean. So when you're in a group that doesn't have good access or is discriminated against or whatever, that you have more vigilance, which is why we see health disparities. And so this is where we get to kindness is actually a health equity issue. So loneliness is another thing that causes our physiology to get revved up, and we know that there are effects. So this is how this path works then. Remember I told you the path with the arrows? This one just goes in a circle because it's what we call a virtuous cycle. So if you experience kindness, it helps your connections, your relationships, even little relationships like the one with the person who's making the coffee, right? It might be very short term, but it's a relationship. It is a connection. That buffers stress, like we just said. It communicates safety, and that is better for your health and well-being. When you're healthy and well, you're going to do more kindness, and you're going to be open to receiving more kindness too. So that is a really nice virtuous cycle that we want to try to get going. Unfortunately, the vicious cycle of loneliness is on the other side. So when we're lonely, we can often, isolate, which then creates our stress goes up because we don't have the connections that communicate safety, and then there's a vicious cycle. So that's what we're trying to interfere with and trying to get this going, right? So kindness as health behavior. You know what a health behavior is? Eating well, right? Exercising, not smoking or using other things that are bad for your body, getting good sleep, reducing your stress, right? So kindness, we actually study it as a health behavior, okay? Feel free to interrupt me if you have questions or anything. I have a water here somewhere. There we go. All right, so this is what we're emphasizing, kindness as a health behavior. Because again, if we really want to think about this and work on it and have people, fund the research and stuff, it can't just be, oh, kindness is nice. Kindness is, it's nice to be kind. We have to really understand what it does for us. And this is what it does for us. All right. So, yay kindness. Are you won over? Okay. Just half of you are. Okay. So, yay kindness. But yay kindness isn't enough. Now, I worked with Ben Spells for 17 years, and I was in the thick of kindness and listening to people. And it's not that hard to get people to this point, to the intention. We call this intention, right? Or readiness, or yay kindness. But how do we get people to actually cross over that line and actually do something, right? Actually try to increase their behaviors. So that's why we're getting into this practicing it, right? Actually doing more behaviors that are kind. But we have to establish that there's a need for more kindness. Does anyone think there's a need for more kindness? Okay, that's just a ridiculous question in this day and age, isn't it? It's ridiculous. We do, the research supports it, but all of us just know. Even if we're feeling a little angsty or a little anti-kindness because we're fed up with the world, probably deep down we still know that we need those connections. We need that from each other. And the good news is we can do that for each other. We can help create the conditions. More and more we're seeing headlines like this in academic journals and stuff. Pro-sociality, which just means kindness, right? Interacting with each other in kind ways. Pro-sociality should be a public health priority. So finally, we're starting to really ring the alarm bells around what happens when our communities are disconnected, when we don't have enough of this kindness going on. And again, when we say kindness, we're talking about all kinds of behaviors, not just the kindness that best friends do for each other, but complete strangers, right? Just letting somebody in front of you in a line, or smiling at somebody, or giving someone directions. These are all little pieces of evidence that we're okay in the world, that people see us, that we belong, that we're included. Now, the other kindnesses, the bigger kindnesses, like somebody supporting you if you're grieving and that kind of stuff, super, super, super important as well. But all of it is important with all kinds of relationships. All right, so then we get to this part. This is where my research lands, and this is where hoping that you will respond to it as leaders, because whether you like it or not, you are leaders in this, is how do we do it then? How do we do this? How do we do this better? And that's the big question. So when we're doing science, if we want more of this, what do we have to look to? What's over here, right? So I've already said here's all these great health and well-being outcomes, and we want more kind behavior to get us there. What do we need to do to get us here? That's just what the question is: what determines kind behavior, or what are the predictors of kind behavior? Right? If we know what determines kind behavior, then we can focus on those in order to increase kind behavior. So now you're all going to leave here as mini social scientists. Is anyone actually studying social science? Nobody is? Maybe you'll change your major. You'll change your major. We're going to talk about, yes. Yes, it does. Sociology is social science, absolutely. Sociology, psychology, communication. Communication? All right. Communication, where you're studying actually theory and that sort of thing. Yep, that's a social science. That's what my degree is in communication. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're just going to talk about 4 predictors. What are we going to do with those 4 predictors? We're going to think about them. We're going to focus on them. If we are in any sort of, leadership position, or we can do anything about it, we'll focus on these 4 things. The first one is attitude. It's attitude. And that simply means, how do people feel about doing kindness, right? If they think doing kindness is going to make them look weak, are they going to do kindness? No, right? So this is the idea. 4 predictors. If you don't have this one, all right, they're probably not going to do the behavior. It's as simple as that, right? So what do you think are some attitudes people have about kindness? What do you think? That kindness can be vulnerable, right? Kindness can be vulnerable because when you do a kindness, you are putting yourself out there. What could happen? You could be rejected, right? You could, hold a door open for somebody and they could look at you and walk the other way. You could say hello to somebody and they could not respond, right? It could be worse than that, but it usually isn't. And most of the time people do respond. But it is, it's vulnerable. And depending on what the kindness is, that might stop us from doing that kind behavior. So really important to understand. What other attitudes do people have? You already told me that some people believe, oh, it makes people happy and it makes relationships grow and that sort of thing. Those are attitudes too. Yes. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. People might think it's weak, right? Love it. You might be a pushover, right? If you're doing kindness, I might look at you and go, oh, you're soft, you're weak, I can take advantage of you, right? And do you think that there are any gender differences around how people feel about kindness? You're nodding enthusiastically. What do you think? Yes? Yeah, what do you can you sum it up? Just what do you think? Meaner? You said naturally more supportive, but it could be the culture too, right? Could be the culture. So yeah, so what is it that makes one person or another person, and that when we're just throwing that one thing out that might be a difference, feel okay about doing a kindness? Why do we think kindness is weak, right? These are the things that we think about. And then we need to intervene once we know. So like if we know that some people won't do kindness because they think it will make them look weak, we can do, an incredible campaign about how powerful kindness is and, how fierce you are when you're kind and all the rest, right? So you can intervene around attitude, okay? But you have to know what people think about it in order to do that. So attitude is the first predictor. The second one is norms. Like just what is the normal thing? Norms just means what are people doing, right? In this space, right? So this place feels pretty kind to me this is my second time here. But I've also been places where I could feel that I didn't feel like it was as kind. Like maybe it was really competitive or really strict or something, right? So the norms in a place will dictate whether you do kindness or not. So you could have a really positive attitude about kindness. I think kindness is important. I think it's important for relationships. Check. But the norms in this place, oh no, my boss does not. My boss thinks kindness is weak, so I'm not going to do kindness, right? Even if I want to myself, I probably won't because the norms in the place are not about it. Does that make sense? It's a really, really powerful one. So the question we ask here are, who are the influencers in a community, right, around kindness, right? Who do we get to be a spokesperson, right? If we want to break gender norms and all these expectations, do we get, like one of the U of A football players to talk about kindness or something like that? And the answer is yes, we do that. I've taken athletes with me to elementary schools all the time to break this idea that kindness is somehow soft, right? So the people who have some sway in a community, and we all can be this influencer person, we set the norms. We do kindness. We talk about kindness. We celebrate kindness. And then other people are like, oh, I think maybe I could do it too, right? I think the norms are here and I could do it too. So if my attitude, check, norms, check, we're getting there. I'm feeling pretty good, right? Yay, kindness, but we're not all the way there. All right, that gets us to intention. That gets us to, yeah, I think I'm into kindness and I could do it in this place because this place is kind, right? But does kind intention equal kind behavior? No, it does not. It does not. What can happen between intention and behavior? What do you think? Right. So you could be like, here I am, and I'm ready to be kind, and now I've overthought it now, and now I'm not going to. I chickened out. I talked myself out of it. Right. You could absolutely. What else? Miscommunication. So you could actually have kind intention, do some sort of behavior or communicate something that you believe is kind, and it doesn't land as kind. Is that what you're getting at? Okay, hold that one because we're going to talk about that one more. That's a good one. You could also just be distracted, right? You could be like, I am going to write a card to my friend who's having a hard time, and then, you know, squirrel, right? You're distracted by something and you don't write the card. So intention is not enough. We actually need to do something and actually get to behavior, and that's what we're trying to do, right? So we're trying to get beyond yay kindness, beyond just be kind t-shirts, right? Be kind t-shirts are important because they're norming, right? This is helping with norms, but it's not enough. All right, so based on what you just said, we can have a kind intention, and we can go ahead and do a behavior that we believe is kind. And guess what? By definition, kindness is good. But who gets to decide if it's kind? The receiver, right? So if the receiver receives it as kind, then it is kind. So it's good by definition. Then there will be positive outcomes. That's how that works. But with kindness, and I don't want to scare anybody off, but we can actually have kind intention and actually do an unkind behavior, right? We can think it's kind, but it doesn't land as kind. And then it will have negative outcomes. Now, we've all done this. And one of the risks of me even talking about this is it scares us into not doing kindness because we're afraid we're going to make a mistake. But we've all done this, and we all will continue to do this. But hopefully, when we create a community that practices together, we can help each other learn stuff, right? Like, how many of you feel super secure knowing what to say to somebody like me whose kid died? Nobody does. Nobody does. Even people who have been through a major grief event, nobody knows what to say, right? So it's something that you have to really think about and practice. But after Ben died, people would say things to me like, "At least you have another son," right? So kind intention, yes, 100%. Landed as unkind to me, and I'm just telling you that because that's how it landed. And so what was the negative outcome? I felt bad. What else do you think, potentially? Relationship, connection. I would probably avoid that person then, right? Now, I am sure before Ben died that I said things like that. I hope I didn't, but I bet I did, right? I suspect we all have, right? And again, I'll use the example of the deaf community, since not a ton of people have a lot of experience in the deaf community. You're gonna, you know, if you ask a deaf person, what are the top 10 stupid things hearing people say, they'll all come up with pretty much the same list of things, right? And it's not that any of us are bad, it's just that we don't know, right? So it begs the question that there's something we need beyond kind intention, okay? So this, yeah, that's bad news. So we're leading to another predictor, right? Which is skills, okay? So if you have the intention, that's great. You are part of the way there, for sure. An important part of the way there. But you also need skills. We also need skills, okay? What kind of skills do we need? Wait, first, before we get there, I have a lighthearted example. So if you are this person who's having knives thrown at you, you probably hope that the person throwing the knives has more than just the intention not to hit you with the knives, right? You really hope that person has some skills. And that's how words are. That's how language is. That's how kindness is. We need to actually consider, what does kindness look like in this situation? And know that we can learn. That's the cool thing. We can learn. We don't have to know everything. We can ask people. We can do research. We can just be humble and say something like, I don't know what to say. I just know I want to support you, right? So the third of our 4 predictors is skills. And confidence is related to this too. If you don't have confidence, you won't even get to the intention part. But once you get to intention, you also need skills. So skills. So what kind of skills do we need for kindness? There's a lot of it is communication skills. So we need to be able to communicate around hard things, right? Social support kind of things. What other things do we need to be able to communicate about in order to do kindness well? What do you think? Speak really loudly. Being inclusive, right? So we need to learn what inclusivity means and looks like. And you don't have to just know, you can learn, right? So again, I'm gonna use the example of deafness. What does it mean to be inclusive of a deaf person? What do you think? Right. Yeah, so you could just ask them how they would like to communicate with you, for sure. You could also do some research, right? You could find out, you could go to your DEI offices or your DRC or Disability Resource Center or whatever, you could learn, right? So they're in order to be a good ally, in order to be inclusive, in order to communicate social support, in order to get feedback. Giving good feedback is a real act of kindness. Real act of kindness. But how does it feel to get bad feedback? And I don't mean negative feedback, I mean badly given feedback, right? If I'm a teacher and I need to give you some constructive criticism, I'm your teacher, I'm supposed to help you grow, right? I can give you feedback well, and you can go, yeah, cool, I'm learning something new, I'm growing. Or I can give you feedback badly and potentially crush your spirit, right? So these things require skills. They require skills. So there's a bunch of skills we need to learn to do kindness well. And some of those are internal too, right? So beyond the actual communication skills, we also need to learn about our own emotional sort of awareness of ourselves, our own emotional awareness, emotion regulation, empathy skills. We need to put effort into understanding people and imagining what people are going through. All right, and then the fourth and final one is that there's also systems and environments involved, right? So this is not all on the individual. In fact, you'll see with our 4 predictors, 2 are individual and 2 are sort of system context kind of variables. So again, with this example, if you're this person having knives thrown at you, not only do you hope the knife thrower has good skills, but you also hope their employer gives them good vacation time, professional development, they've gotten good sleep, the system is supportive. The system is conducive of this skill set. It's absolutely the same with kindness. The system has to be conducive. I work in healthcare a lot, and it's just a really, really good example of this, right? Again, here's our 4 things, right? I could be a new doctor, a resident, and I could have a positive attitude about kindness. Yes, I want to have that conversation with this family member who's grieving. I want to have that conversation, positive attitude. Norms, like the people I'm working with are supportive. They think we should have those kind of conversations. Check. I have the skills. I've learned how to have those conversations. Check. But the system says, oh, no, you do not have time to have that conversation. You need to get on to the next patient. Nurses have those conversations, not doctors. And I'm just making this up right now. But the system can prevent you, right? So check, not check. You're not doing that behavior. So we need all of these things. So this is where we get into the supportive system. This is policy, right? You could want to do something to help somebody. I'm thinking of assisted death for humans, right? It's not legal most places. You could think that was a very kind behavior to do for somebody, but you can't do it in our country because of the laws. That's the system, right? And I'm not giving you any feelings, my own feelings about that. I'm just giving you an example that we can want to do a behavior and not do it because of a system. Okay, you with me? All right. So we have to, when we're looking at, if we're a leader, if we're working in a place, if we're trying to make things better, we can look at our systems. Are our systems, formal systems like policies and stuff, but also informal ones like, rules and procedures and stuff like that, can we make them more supportive of kind behavior? Time is a big one in systems. So we want to communicate things like, it doesn't take a lot of time to be kind. It doesn't take a lot of time. And think about how much time it could save. Again, think of healthcare. Imagine you invest a little time in listening and being empathic and, and doing kindness for this person. That person, they may not, be complaining about their treatment or whatever. So kindness can really be an investment too. So those are our 4 predictors. So we need those 4 things in order to be able to do kindness well. So that gets us to the really getting down to it, getting practical. So if we're trying to increase kind behavior, there's a couple things we have to do. We know that these are the 4 major predictors. That's fine. But we have to keep it in our brain. Do you know the word salient? Salient just means it's kind of in front of you, right? You're thinking about it. Because in our culture especially, I mean, how much attention getting is there out there? What is competing for your attention? Like 2 gazillion things, right? There's so much competing for your attention. So keeping attention on this is a big part of the effort. Keeping kindness, what we call salient. So the more green dots piece is simply a way to remember it because it's sticky. Who knows what the word sticky means in this context? It's sticky. It sticks in your head, right? In ASL, this is the sign for it. It's like in your brain. You don't forget, it's easy to remember more green dots after I tell you about it. Since I came up with this idea and told my husband, Paul, we use it all the time. Like we use it in our casual conversation with each other. And so I'll tell you what it is. Okay, so remember, our goal is more kind behavior. That's our goal. We're creating a community of practice, meaning we're going to sort of be doing this together. That does a lot for us. That helps us with norms. That helps us with attitudes, right? If we're doing this together, we're practicing together, helping build skills together. And we're trying to get ourselves to stretch just a little. Has anyone ever seen this idea? My son used to teach, he used to work at the rec center at the U of A in Tucson, and he taught outdoor adventure, right? And they would take people on ropes courses and all that kind of stuff. And they're trying to get people out of their comfort zone a little bit. But are we trying to get people into the overwhelm zone? No, you don't learn here in the overwhelm zone, right? So if you're afraid of heights, we don't put you straight up at the top of the ropes course, right? But we do try to stretch a little bit. This is where we grow in this stretch thing. Now it's a little bit scary, a little bit risky to go into the stretch, and so we try to create the conditions so that we can take these little stretches together and be able to do the learning we need to do. So this is what we're trying to do as a community of practice around kindness. We're trying to get out of this comfort zone. What does this comfort zone look like since COVID? Does anyone stay home more than they used to? Oh yeah, right? I mean, it's easier to work from home if you can. And that's unfortunately a comfort zone that's not super healthy for us. So we need to stretch out of it a bit, right? We need to when somebody asks us to do something and we're like, oh, what I want to do is, sit in my pajamas and, watch TV or whatever. It's not that we should never do that. We should have time alone sometimes too. But we should also, remember that we need those relationships and stretch into them. All right, so this more green dots came out of this idea of patient experience. When I was working in healthcare, this was the definition of patient experience, right? The sum of all interactions. So if you're talking about a patient's experience, and we've all been patients, right? You've been a patient. It's the sum of your experiences at that hospital, at that clinic, or whatever. When you leave the clinic or the hospital, your feeling about that experience is the sum of all your interactions. Okay, so and those interactions are shaped by the culture, and that influences your perceptions. Okay, this is where it came from. And I'm getting there. Don't worry. So this idea of sum made me go, whoa, we're talking about math, right? We're talking about math. Remember, kindness as a health behavior. So health behavior, eating healthy food, you need to eat a certain amount of healthy food, right? Same idea with kindness. You need a certain amount, and we're getting there, green dots. You need green dots, the sum of all interactions. So we have to make sure that we're creating those interactions. We actually have to stick our neck out a little into that challenge zone and create these interactions. And we can do that for each other, and we can do that for ourselves as well. So from this, we can kind of imagine your student experience here, right, at this college is the sum of your interactions. So when you go home this evening, your feeling about your day is probably going to be based on what your interactions have been like throughout the day. right? If you've had some great little interactions, like you have a great smile, and so this is like a nice green dot for me, these little interactions, right? You're gonna probably feel pretty good about your day, even if work was hard, even if school was hard. You're probably gonna feel okay because the human interactions were good, right? So the sum of all your interactions shaped by the culture of this college that shape your perception of your experience here. Okay, you can take that again to if you're an employee somewhere. Your experience at work is the sum of all your interactions. If there's a bad interaction, you're going to need some positive interactions to sort of cancel it out, right? If we're talking about sum, right? The negative has to be subtracted out of the positive. Again, it's the sum of all your interactions shaped by the organization's culture. And finally, we can think about our human experience is the sum of our interactions. And again, this is because we are social creatures. So we don't need a ton of close relationships. We need some, but we need these interactions. We need these interactions. So the idea with more green dots is we can think about it, and this is purely a tool to sort of think and to talk about it, right? So if you're a leader, you can use this to talk with the people you work with. You can talk with your partner about it. You can just think about it in your own head. Not going to require you to journal or anything like that. You can do this in a journal if you want, but really it's just as a sticky thing in your mind. So a green dot is a positive interaction, okay? A green dot. You could, at the end of the day, go through your day and see what it looks like, right? And I'm going to give you something here in a minute. Red dot is a negative interaction or an unkind interaction. Now, why is that dot bigger than the green dot? Takes a little more space in our mind. That's really a nice way to say it. Does anyone know what that phenomenon is called? What do you remember easier, a compliment or an insult? An insult. Isn't that interesting? You're not the only one. It's all of us. It's a human thing. It's called a negativity bias. And it comes from evolution, right? Again, remember, think of ourselves hunting and gathering. It would be nice to notice a flower by the side of a path. That doesn't save your life. What saves your life? Noticing that giant bear coming towards you, right? So again, the antennae are back one more time. Our little antennae are like, whoa, danger. I need to pay attention to danger because it saves my life, okay? The problem with the negativity bias is that we hold on to the negativity, right? So this red dot may be worth like 3 or 4 green dots when we're getting to our addition and subtraction, right? The marriage research, the domestic partner research says for every 1 negative interaction, you need 5 positive interactions in order to zero out, right? All right, but the good news is we can also have big green dots, an interaction that's worth 3 or 4 or 5 green dots because of when it happens. And this often is during a vulnerable time, right? Like after Ben died, very simple things like holding a door open for me were worth a lot more than 1 green dot. I remember somebody would hold open a door for me, like when I went back to work at U of A, and I would want to tell them. I would want to say, I know you think you're just holding open a door, but this is what this means to you right now. And I didn't do that because I knew it would scare people. But that idea that you're just hello to somebody might be worth a lot, right? Might be worth 3, 4, 5 green dots. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pass out just a little thing for you. You want to pass those down? You do that on that side, and I'll send one down this side too. Now this is just a little packet. Again, you don't have to do much with it. I'll tell you about it though. The important thing though is there is a water bottle sticker in there. More green dots water bottle sticker. The idea being, if you see that more green dots water bottle sticker, somebody is also practicing this too, right? Like you're in it together. We're creating the community of practice if you see that. There's also a green crayon and a red crayon to play around with. And we have a few minutes we're going to play around with now. So you can just sit with it on your lap, and we're going to think through a couple of things. Now, again, if you're a leader, you can use this a lot with thinking about the experience of the students or the employees you work with. Did you all get one? Yeah, send them around the outside too. All right, so if you're a student at this school, can you think about each interaction? Now, we're talking about human interactions, but sometimes you interact with a system too, right? And some humans make decisions about that. For example, at the University of Arizona, you probably have to park about 4 miles away from your building, right? So right away, there's a big red dot, potentially, right? So that's not a human interaction, but it is an interaction with the university that will affect how I feel. So right now, go ahead and just think about yourself today. And do a little green dot and just put a little, I'm not going to ask you to tell me, don't worry. Do a little green dot and just put a little notation next to it what it was, and do red dots too. Now with red dots, you can decide how many dots you think the red was worth. Right? If it was really bad, it might be like 5 or 6. If it was just a little bad, it might be 1 or 2. Now notice that you get a green dot when you do a kindness for somebody else, right? And you get a green dot when you receive a kindness. And you have a green dot from observing a kindness as well. But remember, you could get a green dot for doing a kindness, but the receiver might get a red dot, right? And you probably won't know. And that's something we need to all work on together. So just do a few just to get the idea. Barry. Yeah, so every single person you said hello to is a green dot. Yeah, if you say hi to 5 or 6 or 7 people, that's 5 or 6 or 7 green dots. Like individually, those are all dots. No, you don't have to. There's no right way to record it. This is just a matter, it's just a practice of thinking about it. Are you noticing whether you are creating the green dots or you are receiving green dots? Both? Both's probably a good place to be. Is anyone thinking of that they could create more intentionally themselves? Could you create more green dots for yourself and other people? Absolutely, right? That's where we're going to land here. That's where we're going to land, is that we can actually intentionally, on purpose, create more green dots. Now, it may require us stretching a little bit. Does anyone feel awkward just greeting people? Sometimes? Yeah, I mean, you don't have to admit it. Sometimes we do, but the research actually shows that people really like to be greeted. Have you ever heard not everybody waves, but almost everybody waves back? Yeah, and that's true. And you might get a friendship bracelet, right? You might not, but I always say prepare yourself for somebody not to respond, but it's probably not because they're being mean to you or don't like you. It's probably because they didn't hear you, or they're super stressed out about something, or they're deaf, or something, right? There's probably a reason that's not about you. So you get to write that green dot down even if the person didn't say hello back. All right, anything else people are noticing about their green and red dots? The red dots are more out of your control. Interesting, right? So is it more in control of the system? A system, right? That's why we have to look at systems, right? In fact, we usually are pretty good at identifying red dots and trying to reduce them, at least trying to. We need to definitely keep doing that. And we need to proactively create green dots. What were you going to say? Compliments. Oh, there you go. There's a bunch of green dots right there, right? There's the compliment, and then the paying for your drinks, and it goes on and on. The kindness goes on and on. If we could get way down deep into it, we would talk more, but using somebody's name is a green dot separate from the greeting, right? So if you say, good morning, Veronica, that's like 2 green dots, right? So there's these behaviors that people really like, that make us feel included, that make us feel part of something. So you could also, if you have a partner, a roommate, you live with somebody, your family members, really, really good to practice with them. As a person who is married, it is really easy to take each other for granted, right? Live, or not be mean to each other or anything, but just not interact all the time when we could be. So like we could be both working from home and not interact all day long, right? But since we've been talking about green dots, we do these purposefully, just, he'll bring me like a cup of tea or something, right? And then he'll walk out of my office. He's really tall, and he goes above my door, and he goes, green dot, and walks out of the door. And we just sort of laugh about it, but it's, we're being purposeful. We're being, like, we need to interact with each other. We need to. I think about it with my kids. I need to, give them green dots, even if they're not always giving them straight back, right? That kind of thing. If I'm a teacher and I'm, the students are all coming in, I want to make sure they're getting green dots with each other, right? So I might say, hey, talk about what you did this weekend, or I can plant the seeds so that people can actually create green dots. Because the more we do this, again, remember that nice ripple effect. And then finally, do it with yourself, not the way we just did on the paper, but in your own head. How is your self-kindness? How is your own conversation with yourself in your head? If you had the green dot, red dot, your own conversation, would it be green or red? What do you think? We are. That is apt, and it's true, and maybe it provides comfort to know that this is another human thing. We are very self-critical. It's really a thing to watch, though. If your inner critic is a jerk, that's very common, but it is something to work on, right? And so a green dot would be something like, noticing yourself being a jerk to yourself, right? And catching yourself and going, wow, I don't think I would treat my friend that way, right? That would be a green dot. The noticing of it would be a green dot, right? The treating yourself badly would be a red dot, but then the noticing would be a green dot, and the practicing that and understanding that this is a human thing. So what is your own self-talk? What are your own behaviors around caring for yourself, your sleep, your eating, your movement, that kind of stuff? You can use it for that. So again, it's just a thing to kind of be sticky, to think about. There's not necessarily a practice that anybody has to do, but it does help keep it salient. So like if this entire community all knew about red dot, green dot, you could just start using that language, right? I think it helps people who don't like the words kindness or compassion, or those words are too soft or something. Just the idea of a green dot, just a positive interaction, right? All right, so let's just wrap it up. Increasing kind behavior in your world, you're going to make kindness salient. Again, salient, right? If kindness is a beach ball, we're keeping it in the air. You all are doing it. There's kindness quotes out there. There's kindness activities. You asked me to come talk about kindness, but you can do it in a lot of ways, including just saying, like, what does kindness look like? This is a hard situation. I want to be kind here. What does it look like? What does kindness look like here? Keep it salient. As a community, identify the systemic barriers, right? Are there any systems things that are keeping people from doing kindness better? You as students might not have as much access to that systems level, but you probably do at some level have access. But you can certainly share with leaders as well. And then leaders are kindness influencers. So leaders need to understand how much influence they have and how much opportunity they have to create norms around kindness, around self-care, around talking about kindness, around wrestling with it a little bit, or rolling it around, trying to figure it out, modeling it. And then identify skills that are necessary, and then make sure people have the opportunity to learn them. And make sure there's no stigma to needing to learn them, right? Why should you know how to XYZ, right? Until you do. So are there places to learn to be a good ally, have that hard grief conversation, give good feedback, learn more about your own emotional regulation, awareness, that sort of thing. And then just keep learning and practicing. Use more green dots if it's a way that you can sort of play with it. Keep it front of mind. And understand that this whole thing is a practice. It is a practice, but we can increase those kind behaviors. And when we increase those kind behaviors, we increase those great outcomes that we want. And we create that community that feels safe and welcoming for everybody. And it's in that place that we all do our best work, right? We do our best school work. We do our best learning. We do our best leading. We can be ourselves. We can be safe. We don't have to be vigilant. So thank you all so much for having me up here. This is my email if anyone wants to get in touch. This is the research team that I work with at the university. If anyone wants to study kindness, you can come on down to U of A when you're done here. And we'll ask more questions and try to find more answers. Thank you all so much for your time. I can answer a couple questions if you have time, but we are at the end time right now. So. Yes. I'm actually a research professor, so I don't teach regular classes, but I teach a research class that's sort of independent study. We're actually starting a club at the university at U of A. It's called Kind Cats, but it's not just a club. It's actually, they will be targeting the 4 predictors. So they'll be doing activities all around campus, very systematically targeting those predictors, and we'll be measuring and like doing some research on that. Yeah. Yes. So Ben's Bells is really an organization that focuses on these predictors, right? Keeps kindness salient in the world, has programming in schools. Ben's Bells themselves are just these ceramic wind chimes. I have one in here. And they are to keep kindness front of mind. But then the stuff in the schools and in businesses and stuff is where we look at creating norms and practicing skills. This is a Ben's Bell. Aren't they beautiful? Yeah, so the pieces are made by the community. So you sit, like we have 2 studios down in Tucson. We used to have one in the Phoenix area. So you just sit and paint, hang out with your friends, paint a little bit. You can come on down to Tucson and give it a go. So we just hang them out. They have a tag that says, you have found a Ben's Bell. So if you saw it hanging, you would read the tag and you would know you get to keep it. Really fun to find. Yeah, we can do to-go kits, and you can sit and paint. Our we have a community art class at U of A, and on this Thursday, they're going to be doing 3 pop-up studios around campus just for the students. So it's really relaxing. You don't have to have any artistic ability. You can just sit and paint solid colors or whatever, and it's really fun, and it's a nice way to gather. Yeah, thanks for asking. Anything else? Yes. They're put out randomly. I mean, they're mostly in Tucson, but we have done a bunch up in, this area is so vast. We've done them up here, but we have placed out on the East Coast too. So all over the place, but mostly in Tucson. Yeah. My brother, who lives in Portland and found one in Portland, like sent me a text with a picture. I'm like, all right, what are the chances? Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Oh my goodness. Thank you. I like coming here. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.